Welcome to Bulletproof Veteran Podcast. Thank you for your service.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to Bulletproof Veteran Podcast. We got a good one for you this week. You're going to be super excited. All right, we have on the show two representatives from Hunter 7 Foundation. We have Keith Dow and we have Chelsey Poisson. All right, we're going to be just talking everything toxic exposure. We're going to be talking about how Hunter 7 Foundation has just been kind of leading the charge in research, which I think is such an important thing. They talk so often about all these different organizations that are trying to help in the toxic exposure world by going to Congress and all this other stuff. But what is amazing to me about Hunter 7 is these are actual doctors, nurses. These are people boots on the ground doing the research and trying to figure out what's going on and why veterans have the weird ailments that we do, and then tying it to some of the places that we've been. So again, Chelsey, Keith, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
Yeah, definitely. As we usually do on the show, Keith, you've been on the show once before, so you kind of have the gist of this, but Chelsey, we'll usually just do a quick introduction so that we know a little bit about you and, you know, kind of how you got involved with all this and where you kind of came from. So we'll start with you. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I started off, my life was pretty much, hey, I'm going to join the military. That's going to be my career. I was never really good at school. Didn't really pay attention, you know. I was very active growing up, varsity sports, and so military was my career. I was accepted to a military academy right out of high school. For some weird reason, I was like, this is too strict for me. So I dropped out and I enlisted in the military. I enlisted in the Army. I did that for almost a decade. Various positions throughout the ranks. I was probably one of the only E5s at the time in charge of an aviation platoon. It was a good time. I learned a lot, did a lot, saw a lot. But the biggest game changer was when I got hurt. I hurt my back that required a severe spinal cord injury that required immediate surgery.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, you know, afterwards I was like, okay, I'll just start exercising again and get back in shape. No big deal. And my neurosurgeon was like, you know, you need to get out. You know, you can't, I'll see you again if you keep doing this the way you're doing it. And I was like, yeah, okay, sure. And so I just kind of kept going with it. And he was right. I was actually doing burpees one day and my spine where they had done the surgery pretty much caved in. And the disc completely slipped out and my two spinal columns kind of hit each other. So I was like, oh,
Damn.
Okay, can't move. It was awkward for me. And it was the first time in my life where I felt like I didn't know what was going to happen, because that's when I knew I was going to get medically discharged. So, you know, fast forward, I'm at the VA. The VA doctor said to me, and that didn't really matter to me then because I was so upset, but he said to me, just because you're out of uniform doesn't mean you're done serving. And I was like, okay, you know, whatever. And it always kind of stayed in the back of my head. So on my way out, I was like, well, I got to find something to do. You know, I can't just sit here and do nothing. So as a medic, I was like, I guess I'll go to nursing school. So at 26 years old, I went to nursing school. It was a very hard transition because I couldn't yell at people. I couldn't expect them to do things that they were supposed to do for, you know, the overall benefit of the team. It was very individualized. It was an awkward thing for me that took a lot of adjusting, but I'm thankful for it. And so I went to school. It took me about 3.5 years to graduate undergrad with my bachelor's in nursing. I graduated with college honors and also the only one to graduate with departmental honors for research that was published internationally on Iraq war veterans.
Very cool.
So I was like, I'm just going to keep going back to school, you know, and try to help the veteran community. So that's where I'm at now. Full-time student. I work part-time in the ER, part-time in clinical research for infectious diseases for Regeneron, the new COVID monoclonal antibody drug. I'm the chief nurse research lead for that. So I keep myself quite busy.
I was going to say, it definitely sounds like it. That is not a, well, just being a full-time student in anything that's medical is a lot. And Keith, I know you're going to school for social work. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you understand. I mean, anything like that, you're putting in the hours. It's not like you can just kind of phone it in. Hey, I'm going to go to business management. Nothing wrong with business management. If you like it, hey, great, good for you. But my bachelor's is in business management. I wrote every paper without even looking at the book. You don't have to. There was no memorization. I could just write crap. Oh, you want me to make up a company and manage it? Sure, why not? This is great.
Nice.
Your guys is what you are doing takes time. So to have Hunter 7 Foundation, to have the 2 part-time jobs on top of it, you're probably a busy woman.
To say the least.
Just to say the least. Well, thank you, Chelsey. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you.
Keith, for anybody that didn't catch the last episode with Dead Reckoning, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'll skip my military stuff and Dead Reckoning and stuff because I'm wearing a different hat today. But
yeah,
we talked a little bit about it, I think. But fast forward to 2019, I went back to school. I had done a bachelor's in human services, which is a little bit more law enforcement, criminal justice focused.
Okay.
And I did not want to go that route for a few reasons. So I started looking at options for grad school and second careers and stuff while I was working security at a hospital. During that time, while I was working in a hospital in that capacity, it definitely wasn't like checking doors and writing parking tickets. We were fighting all the time. Which is another reason I was like, man, I'm super over this. Like, I'm not going to be, hired meat hammers for a living.
Right.
I can't do it. But I found that while I was still really good at fighting, I was also still really good at de-escalating and interacting with the public and interacting with patients and stuff like that. And that's also where I kind of got more exposure to the clinical side of the world. Where I had no exposure to that before, right? Like, as an MP in the Army, I didn't work in clinics. I didn't do a lot of that, but I enjoyed talking to people. That was the only part, if there was a part of my job, like on the law enforcement side of it, that I enjoyed about being an MP, because I really didn't enjoy very much about it.
Mm-hmm.
It was definitely like being able to engage with, everyone on a post, and not be a dick about it, and to be able to build that rapport, right? Like, instead of like laying charges, like I would have a first sergeant on speed dial and like sorry boys, sorry I had to go that way, but like this is way better in the long run than everybody getting hauled in and like us throwing blows and stuff like that, and ruining careers. Like, instead you just get the shit smoked out of you in the quad, and that's that.
And it's done.
Right.
That was back when the military was good, though. That was back when it was like a real.
True.
Yeah, I don't know how much more they do that now, but that was the way that I like to operate. So
one of my good buddies is a first sergeant, and he deals with it all the time.
Yep.
It's not easy, because now the time of, hey, let's just go behind the shop and we'll deal with this, doesn't really exist that much anymore.
No,
from what he tells
LT
me
anymore. Like, it can't, the old way is pretty dead, but when I was in, it was still had like a couple breaths left in it. So I did like that. I liked I went to a lot of shitty calls. I dealt with a lot of domestics. I saw a lot of child abuse, child neglect.
I'd have a tough time.
The military houses the dirtiest people in the world, physically and socially. Like, just it's a place where some people come to serve and give back, and then it's also sometimes like a place where people go to because they have no other option. And it's also a place where you can just go in. It's not like college where you have to apply. Like, the bar is pretty low for some jobs, and some people slip in. So you can thank people for their service all you want, and it is well deserved. However, not everyone that serves in uniform is a saint, right?
It's what I say all the time about politicians when they say vote for a vet. And I'm like, I know a lot of veterans you don't want running this country. Trust me.
Yep.
Vote for a vet shouldn't be your only qualification, because there are some dirtbags out there
For sure.
that I served with.
And there's, I mean, and like I said, there are many upstanding individuals,
Of course.
uniform, but I think that's a common misconception with, like, you know, that valor seeking thing, is that there are people that are not great in the military too, and those installations are full of them. So I got exposed to, you know, some things I had seen like throughout my childhood and adolescence and stuff, and revisited like during those calls, and that kind of sucked. But it exposed me to, you know, the ability to help people. But at that time I didn't see any, I didn't think like, oh, when I get out, I'm going to go to nursing school, or, oh, I'm going to go, you know, do a degree in like mental health counseling or anything like that. I did not think I was smart enough to go back to school. That was not in my plan. I was like, I'm gonna pick up a trade. I'm gonna, you know, swing a hammer. Like, I want to just do something where I don't have to interact at all. Fast forward, rewind to before I finished that bachelor's degree, and I was like, I can't do this. I can't, like, I like building shit. I like working with my hands, but I'm like, I can't do it for a living. I actually have to do something service oriented, you know? So working at the hospital kind of gave me that exposure again, where I was like, I definitely can't fight for a living anymore. Like, my body's going to wear out. You know, I would get in like a good scrap and I'd be like screwed for a couple days. Like, we'd win for sure, but like I'd pay for it. And it just wasn't working. So, because there was a lot of hands-on, like, it was almost every day we were going hands-on. So, you know, when you're 30 plus, like, and you've already done a whole bunch of stuff like that, it's like, it definitely starts to wear on you. So I started thinking about that, longevity and stuff, aggravating, you know, things that I already had diagnosed and stuff like that. And so I started looking at school again, and being in that clinical environment, I'm like, man, like I could do something like this, but I'm like, I don't want to go back to, you know, I don't want to go to nursing school, because I'm like, I'm not going to do another bachelor's degree and all that. Like, that's going to take way too long. So I started looking at different graduate programs based on what I had seen. And I started looking at like mental health counseling, and then I ended up settling on Master of Social Work, just because it's so much more versatile. So, yes. I mean, and you know, my work with Hunter 7 is a perfect example of it, where I'm doing a whole bunch of different things because I'm in my generalist year. So just to explain, so what I'm doing right now is I'm actually doing my first field placement. So it's a 32-week field placement where I do, you know, 2 days a week which sometimes turns into more than 2 days a week with Hunter 7. I try to keep those office hours, but if shit needs to get done, shit needs to get done. So, and it's been really cool. Like, it was a really, really good opportunity, and it developed like super organically. And I'm a pretty firm believer in like everything happens for a reason, and there's some sort of plan, or no matter what, you know, what you believe in, like shit, you know, there's an explanation kind of for everything. And due to COVID, I could not even get an interview with anyone because they weren't taking students where I am. So they're like, yeah, we're not. And, you know, that's kind of the norm everywhere. Like, even if you're back to work, they're not taking students because it's added liability. It's, you know, it's one more person. It's one more person they have to worry about bringing stuff in. It's one more person, you know, they have to worry about caring for, and, you know, whatever. So that was difficult, and I was getting no in all the emails I was sending out. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, I literally just want to work for you for free and like learn from the people that, you know, I need an hour a week from an MSW that you have, and I will do all kinds of busy work for you, you know, like, or just sit there and listen. Like, I'm really good at that too. But no one could take on that responsibility. So, so we started communicating with Hunter 7, and then I think it was Paul, who I was talking to, who was like, yeah, and I said, hey, like, by the way, we were talking about a whole bunch of other stuff surrounding the book and all that. And I said, like, hey, by the way, I'm doing my MSW. If you guys ever need any help once I'm done with that degree, let me know. Because, I'd love to extend a hand, like, because I just saw that there was an MSW on staff. But I think it was only one where there were like, 6 nurses, a bunch of doctors. I was like, oh, there's only one MSW. So that'd be cool if I can contribute in that way. And he was like, yeah, for sure. If you ever need an internship, let me know. And I was like, actually, I have a week to find one. Before I have to talk to robots on computers for my virtual field placement instead. And I was like, and I really don't want to do that. And I was literally out of course. I had already delayed it a semester because I was out of courses because I was going through some family problems. So I was like, it was uncertain. And I was like, coursework is a bit more secure than a field placement.
Of course.
So I had already delayed it and I was out of courses that I could do. I think I could have done one this semester. So, I was out of courses that I could do that would allow me to delay that. So here I am. Now I'm doing my field placement with Hunter 7. So like day to day, I deal with, clients and inquiries,
Everything
taken as client, for consults and stuff like that. Sometimes people just need advice. I CC Chelsey and everything so that I don't say anything stupid that she can't correct. And then, and also just learning as much as I can. One of the things that I've the first week I was like, hey, Chelsey, send me literally everything that you have on toxic exposure so that I can read. So I've been digging through that, but I also I try to do like independent learning on the side of it as well. So I'm reading this book, what's it called? Scorched Earth, about Agent Orange right now, and kind of trying to draw parallels. So, so we all stay super busy, and then I do.
It sounds like it.
So Chelsea's my boss, and then Paul is no, Meg's the boss.
Meg is the boss.
And then Paul, who is the MSW liaison, is also doing my field instruction. So like an hour a week, I get on the phone with him and talk about it. But what's cool about all this is that like because I'm not in Rhode Island, and where pretty much everybody is based out of, or Massachusetts, I'm able to do this remotely. Whereas like before COVID, the school wouldn't have allowed it. You have to be on site, but because they've made all these adjustments, I'm able to do it, which is super cool. And that's what I was kind of talking about. Like everything happens for a reason. So thank you, world, for enduring the Rona
so that you could do this,
so that I can do the field placement with Hunter 7.
There you go.
That's
there
it.
You go. See,
that's it, man. Let's go.
He definitely doesn't give himself enough credit though, because I mean, he's helped organize so much in terms of like, I'm very analytical, I'm very clinical, and Keith is more like, hey, listen, people don't understand what the hell you're talking about. And I'm like, that makes sense, because it's a lot of like crazy numbers and words, and half of them I can't even spell. And so like the way he does it, I throw a ton of stuff at him and it's like a funnel, and he's like, okay, let's break this down. And it's exactly what I need, and it's what benefits the overall community, because not everybody wants to hear about, your metoprolol and your beta blockers and your calcium channel blockers. Nobody cares. They want to know who, what, where, when, why, how, right?
Yep. And
so like he's done amazing things with that. Partnerships wise, finding places for veterans to get treatments. That's been huge. And then speaking with members of Congress, that's a lifesaver, because, I'm very, you know how it is, how politics are. So he's
that's been a really cool side of it, because that's a side of social work that, like, in my seminar course, like there's only one other person who's doing any kind of legislative work. So like being able to directly, and I think what she's doing is definitely not meeting with legislators. Like it's much more, on the backside of it. So it's pretty cool that I'm able to participate in that kind of stuff, and, jump on Zoom meetings with legislative assistants and stuff like that.
And literally create policy. It's
yeah. And you actually, Keith, if you wanted to even see that side of it, it sounds like this was the year to be a part of it, because as Hunter Seven just posted the other day on Instagram, it is actually one of the initiatives for the Veterans Affairs Committee.
Yeah.
It is toxic exposure.
Yep.
So they are supposed to be doing stuff. Now,
Absolutely.
I have a lot of trust in our government. But they're supposed to be, this is something that they're actually supposed to be looking at. And it seems like it's starting to get some traction. It really does. You know, when you see, you know, the Stronghold Freedom Foundation, Chelsey, you know that I've spoken to them. They just got their last bill introduced, which is the K2 CARE Act.
Yep.
And so they're looking to get presumptive care, you know, so basically the way I understood it, and you might know better than me, that basically if you served in K2 and you have one of the diseases or conditions that are caused by one of the chemicals that were there, you don't have to show service connection if this gets passed.
Right. And
it's huge.
It's huge. And so one of the crazy things about that whole situation, I didn't even know we were in a place called Uzbekistan. When we invaded Afghanistan, I was 11 years old. And I think we were in Afghanistan from NK2
till 05.
Uzbekistan till 05.
Yep.
So I was 15 years old when we left. So when I talked to Sarah and I talked to PJ and they told me about K2, I was like, what the hell? Where
What's
is this?
K2?
What's
you talking about the ski? Like, you talking about mountains?
I've heard of K1 in Iraq, but I was just super. So come to find out, one of the females who was like instrumental in creating this whole Stronghold Freedom Foundation and pushing forward this legacy was actually a resident of the town, the small town I served in the ER at. And so while I was trying to implement this screening protocol in the ER, she actually lived like a block away and was fighting for the same type of idea. So when I saw it on national news, I was like, I know that place. I was like, I work there. So it was very, it's just such a small world.
Yeah.
But it's such a big issue that affects so many people so differently. And, you know, thankfully that's where we differ in the sense that, you know, the medical terminology is so, it's heavy. It's definitely heavy and it's boring. And, you know, except people like me, I'm like, I love, you know, the Krebs cycle and ATP, you know, I love it. It's so much fun, but a lot of people don't care. And I got that because half the time I don't care. But when you have a presumptive condition, you know, if you don't have a diagnosis, and that's the biggest thing that we're seeing the lapse of diagnosis, you know, people are coming forward with all these different issues, but nobody really knows what's causing the issue. You know, we have that tertiary type of healthcare system where you treat the cause and not the symptom. You know, so, and that's the biggest thing. That's my biggest bout with presumptive conditions is I completely agree. 100%. You know that stuff, whatever's over there, that black goo, that nasty place in K2, you know that's going to make you sick. But it's like we spoke about before we jumped on this podcast. I look at you and you look fine. You look healthy. You know, I would look at you if you came in and said, I think I'm having a heart attack. I'd be like, nah, you're fine.
Right,
you know,
you
know, I would. So, I mean, it's really hard to create, like, presumption is like down the line, you know, but if you don't have that diagnosis, there's no way you're going to get a presumption because there's nothing to base it off of. So
of course
I take it really personally when, you know, patients come in and it's like, we look at them for their demographics, not so much individualized for their health history. So we differ a lot from that perspective. And I think that's because of the medical backgrounds that we have.
That's what makes you guys unique. It really does, because you're, like I said at the beginning of the show, you guys are boots on the ground. You are doing it day in and day out. So it's different than somebody who maybe is just trying to like take up a torch and, hey, I'm going to help out. You guys are researchers, doctors. You know what you're looking for here.
It's crazy. Sometimes I'm like, wait, I'm a what? I have to do what?
It's awesome though. It's great.
Scares me. But and then on the contrary aspect of that is that what does make us unique is that, like, you know, Keith and I can sit here and say, oh yeah, remember that time that, you know, like for me, like when I was flying in Blackhawks, you know, like all that rotor wash and getting kicked up and all the stuff on the FODs, and it was just a mess. And, you know, so it's little things like that make it unique. Because one thing that really blew my mind, and we fought hard to kind of alter this perspective, was people are like, oh, burn pits. And I'm like, yeah, no, they're bad. Everything was burn pits. But I'm like, do you remember taking your uniforms and putting them in the 50-gallon barrels of DEET and then hanging them up to dry? And it's just like, it didn't make sense to me. Like, we were really doing this. We were putting this into a neurotoxic chemical and then having it dry in the sun. And, you know, when you're out and you're in these operational environments, you're sweating. When you're sweating, your pores are opening. When your pores are opening, that toxin that's in that DEET is going to go into your skin. It's like, duh, you know?
Of course.
So when people are like burn pits, and I'm like, well, no.
Those fireproof ACUs too.
Yeah.
I was like, something never sat right with me about those.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I mean, I was
weird smell.
I was a mechanic between hydraulic fluid, JP8, you know, de-icing fluid. That stuff was nasty. The foam from fire trucks that they used to put out that stuff, like as soon as it touched your skin, it burnt your skin. You know, you were red right away. And we were taking parts, you know, off of these trucks. And like you said, you're sweating while you're doing it. So your body is just open to take all of this in. Yeah. So I agree with you. You know, everything is burn pits it's very important. I don't want to take anything away from that, but it's the flashy, get on the burn pit registry. It's you know, so there's a congressperson that wants to have a burn pit bill that goes through.
Well, a perfect example is Mark Green, right? He's a K2 veteran.
Yes.
But he was also a Green Beret. I was reading his book, and it's like, you know, some of the people that we've come across in the past, you know, year are mostly high-speed operators. A lot of these guys that have passed away are high-speed operators. A lot of the ones that I get with cancers are high-speed operators. And it's like, okay, I get it. Burn pits, you see them mostly on bases, right? These guys aren't hanging out on the bases.
Not on base.
They're not on base, you know. They're in there kicking down doors in neighborhoods in Iraq and Afghanistan. And you think about the leader rounds that you drop in these buildings, and you know, then you're housed there, and you get the asbestos in the air, and you get the sulfur, and you get the depleted uranium and the chemicals in the sand. So I mean, it's a huge misconception to believe that burn pits are the most deadly thing out there. Because I mean, if that were the case, we'd see less operators dying. Of course. You know. So it's such a crazy situation. It's so multifactorial, and it's intriguing to look at and be like, wow, this is a real issue. And you know, a guy passed away recently. He was an officer, Major Star, and he was saying that he loved to run. And I hate running personally. I run like a duck, so I hate running. It's awkward for me. But you know, you'll get those people who love running and love PTing, and I get it. Officers are good at some things, and one of the best things they're good at is PT. I'll give them that. You know, so when you're running outside on these bases, you know, you think you're doing your platoon a solid justice by running with them, getting them physically fit on these, you know, in Moktadia or Bakuba, and let alone you're exposing them to all these toxins because of increased work of breathing. It's crazy. So it's such a dynamic thing for me. It blows my mind. It really does.
Yeah. And it's so amazing to me that with what we saw in Vietnam, what we saw in Gulf War, and then what we saw post 9/11, that it's still something that we have to fight. Like you would think after Vietnam and everything that happened there, that there would have already been this head of steam going into Gulf War. And then there was Gulf War syndrome, and there was things that happened there that they still can't explain. And yet we're still have to fight now post 9/11 and almost 20 years post 9/11. I'm not even talking about, listen, I got out in 2005. So it was like right after 9/11. You know, you're still taking up this mantle now, 20 years later, for people that served with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think there's multiple levels of awareness too, though. Like, you know, because in that book that I'm reading, so I mean, like burn pits, I think is the hot button issue, right? The positive side of that is if more people are talking about burn pits, then they start to look into what other toxic exposures.
Of course,
you know, ammunition. Like if you're expending, you know, hundreds of rounds a day, then your risk is higher. If you're in XYZ environment, like your risk is higher, but people don't know about that, right? So you can look at it like that, where, you know, these like tier 1 dudes are having kind of the same conditions developed from the same causes as like, you know, like a female support personnel that didn't leave the fob at all.
Right. Working POL or something like that.
Yeah. Like air quality and stuff like that. Right. But then also, it just like I said, different levels of awareness. And I hate awareness because 9 times out of 10, it's not followed with action.
Mhm.
So you can raise awareness all day. You can do these weird silky marches to raise awareness for PTSD. But if at the end of that event you go home and then you don't call anybody for 6 months, then what the hell are you doing?
Right. Right.
And so I have problems with things like that within the veteran community. And so, but if you can bridge those gaps, and you can raise awareness for burn pits, and then in turn raise awareness for things like low T and like all kinds of other health issues that everybody else is having, then you're doing something good. And then we're doing the research side of it. We're doing legislative work, stuff like that, because that's only one. Everybody knows Agent Orange was used in Vietnam, right? Back to that book I was reading. Everybody knows it was used in Vietnam. What most people don't know, and they know that like it affected veterans because they used it on the jungles, and then they inhaled it. It was absorbed through their skin the same way all this shit is.
Yep.
What they don't realize is that like it's still in that goddamn soil. Those jungles still haven't grown back. The government was hitting Vietnamese crops with it because they were trying to deplete the resources of the VC, and it's still causing adverse effects. So like the whole doomed to repeat what you don't learn, that's a real thing. That's why I'm reading that book. That's why we dig into other stuff too, is because that it's just that. This is the same thing.
It's the same thing.
If we're not looking at the bigger picture, because there are Vietnam veterans who had children with birth defects. So it probably makes sense that if we don't take care of this stuff and we don't work on those preventative measures, there are going to be GWAT veterans who are going to pass down terrible defects to their children, and probably already have.
Probably, yeah. I was just going to say, I mean, because we're 20 years into this, there's a good chance that it's already occurred.
Right. And will it be multi-generational? Will it be, how far will it go?
Well, see, we've seen, so it's funny that you say that, because I've seen a lot of people, mention the issues with even getting pregnant in the first place. That's been a huge issue. Huge issue for both males and females. And, it's the unknown etiology. Is it stress related? Is it hormone related? It could be both. Is it exposure related? But, not only that, the risk of having a child in Iraq, for instance, and, I read a study that showed that they are 15 times more likely compared to Hiroshima and Nagasaki to have a child born with a birth defect. That's crazy. We dropped 2 atomic bombs too on Japan.
It's Fallujah, I think. That's like the worst because of that fight, because they dropped so much ordnance on the city.
Yeah, and a study just came out, I think 2 weeks ago, that said depleted uranium isn't related to the global war on terror syndrome, GWAT syndrome, or Gulf War syndrome. And people automatically assume that it's a safe chemical. And I'm like, well, no, because there's a subset of what they consider symptoms for Gulf War syndrome. And it's GI issues, headaches, nausea, stuff like that. But depleted uranium overall is such a deadly chemical. I mean, it's not biodegradable. So we use it in our tanks and our strikers. And, my fiance was an Iraq war vet who served, and he was a guy with 3-2, and he dealt with strikers and recoveries and all that stuff. So, when you get a striker that's hit and you got to go recover that, you're literally stepping into a heaping pile of smoking depleted uranium, so the fact that that study said, oh, it was safe, people are thinking that means that the chemical overall is safe, but it's not, because just like Keith said, the biodegradability is like 1 billion years. So it's sitting in that sand. Yeah. We still have stuff from the first Gulf War over there hanging out,
it's not going anywhere.
It's like
and
one
in the buildings and stuff, it's in the architecture, it's embedded.
Right.
And it's
they
normal.
They pulled the teeth from some of these children that had all these congenital heart defects, and they had laden metals inside of their teeth, in their hair. And it's like, what? How do you even get that in your teeth, as an infant? It's crazy.
And I think about that a lot too, is man, if we've been there, at war for 20 years, guys are doing, 12-month deployments, some of them, 2 to 3, some of them more than that, some of them just 1, and they're having these issues. Think about the people that have to continue living there. Right. Like, and that's exactly what we're talking about right now, is like, those are the people that are still there. Those are the people that are literally, born into these situations.
And what's so crazy about the whole thing, and you guys are saying it, in the best way possible, that this isn't just something that happened yesterday. This stuff lasts forever. So like, when you look at some of these areas that we're going into, Afghanistan, before we were there, the Russians were there. And if you think the Russians were cleaning up as they were walking out the door, you got nothing coming to you. So we were exposed to things that had nothing to do with the war that we were fighting. It's stuff that's been there forever. Iraq, it's Gulf War, it's things Saddam did in the 80s. It goes back even further than that, because all of this stuff just stays there. It doesn't go away.
Do you ever like smell somebody's brakes going? Like, or somebody hits their brakes hard, or like, something like, in that smell, you're like, oh,
and it's just going to stay with you.
But Iraq smells like that all the time.
Wow.
And so we didn't, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, we're in these dirty places with this poor air quality all the time. And I think there's something to be said about what becomes normal for people and their reactions to it, So I think a lot of people, until like that burn pit registry came up, I'm pretty sure no one even thought about it at all. And that's a whole other, the registry is a whole other thing. But I think before it was a thing, I don't think anyone thought about it. I don't think it was I don't think it was on anyone's radar individually, in terms of what you had been exposed to.
No, I never thought about it. Never once.
Yeah.
No, well, it's crazy, because so like when this whole first thing came up, even as a medic and somebody with this experience, I had no idea that it was deadly, and like, I like to think I'm pretty in tune to what's going on. But when he said to me, they did a 15-month stint, they were stop loss and they had to stay over for an extra few months in Iraq. So he came back to Germany in 2008. He was there from early 2007 to late 2008. So when he came back, he said his best friend, 24 years old, his best friend had died from acute respiratory failure. 24 years old. That's crazy. Like, how do you die? And like, this is a healthy guy. Like, how do you die? He's like, yeah, my friend he ended up dying as soon as we left Iraq. And I was like, nobody like thought to be like, oh, why? Why? And then, his team leader ended up getting acute myelogenous leukemia, which is directly related to exposures. And, his sergeant major ended up getting cholangiocarcinoma, which is extremely rare and only seen in 80-year-old Asian males with hepatitis like B or C or A or one of them, so it's such an odd thing to just all these rare symptoms and rare occurrences of cancers, and like these aggressive cancers. And I had a politician say to me once, well, and this kind of hit home, and it kind of made me mad, because I said, well, look at the increased rate of these liver and these bile duct cancers and stomach cancers. And this politician said to me, well, veterans have been known to drink a lot. And I was like, yes, but, and I was just kind of brought back by it. And I was like, but if that were the case, then why are all these Iraqi males dying from the same thing? Because they don't drink alcohol.
They don't drink at all.
Yo, but I'm going to jump up on my box real quick. I'm going to say sitting, but my theoretical box. It really infuriates me when veterans advocate for things like psilocybin, things like, CBD, like, and it's shameful that the VA has not done research on alternative treatment methods, that they are still pumping out opioids, like
left and right,
candy, right? That makes me angry too. However, you have to take responsibility, and you can't, as a veteran, you can't advocate for better care if you are not caring for yourself. If you drink 7 Monsters a day, and
I feel targeted.
Was that a shot? That might have been a shot.
No, I just started drinking something in a yellow can earlier, so I figured I'd throw one out. But if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're like, I stopped energy drinks a while ago. Like, I drank copious amounts of coffee, but I read a study, and that study was all I needed, because it's kind of like, is this thing making your life better? And if you can't say, yeah, like, no one's life ever got worse when they stopped drinking.
Right.
Fact.
Except the first 24 hours and you have that like DT seizure.
there's different, that's the case by case.
Right.
But you know what I mean? Like,
then it gets better.
Like I read a study about energy drinks aggravating existing mental health issues.
Absolutely.
Done. See ya. Like, I was drinking Monsters, Red Bulls, whatever, like, and I stopped. And that's not to say they don't have their place. Like, it's not to say they are like the end all be all of, detriment to your health, like whatever. But I'm definitely for like doing what I can for myself. And then I feel I have, the right to say, y'all are fucking up and you're not doing what you need to do for us.
Right.
But I do have, like, I do take issue with that quite a bit. And I've had many conversations about, you can't, if you're living a sedentary lifestyle by choice, not because of disabilities, not because of this or that, you're living a sedentary lifestyle by choice. You can't advocate for better care from the VA. I mean, you can. I'm not saying you can't advocate for yourself. You absolutely should. However, you need to do the work yourself too.
Right.
Like, there are things that are within your own power. Not everybody needs to do CrossFit. I also take issue with like the biggest like PT shit bags in my, my previous units, all of a sudden being studs when they get out, when they were profile riders the whole time. I'm
The
like,
whole time.
Hey, I'm also taking this personally right now.
I'm like, no shit, you're copping PRs now because you don't have any existing injuries because you never expended any effort. But I digress.
You still have knees that work.
So, but I mean, that's a big thing for me, is that like, I don't feel like you have as much of a leg to stand on if you're not taking care of the things that you can take care of yourself. Right. And then we get on all that shit. Like, we can advocate for better care from the VA. And then we can, do all this legislative work and stuff. But like, we really have to, like, as individuals, we really have to start taking better care of ourselves. Like, stop putting bullshit in your body. Stop, if substance abuse is an issue you are at risk for, stop drinking multiple, like, every night of the week.
Mm-hmm.
It's not good for you.
Right.
You can ride that red wine for the enzymes train to bed all you want, but like, it's just, it has, like I said, it has its place. But like, if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't complain about other people not taking care of you.
Yep.
And it's so interesting that he says that, because, I'll let you on a secret that'll be announced later today, but we officially partnered with Task Force Dagger. And
Awesome.
One of the amazing people there, And, one of the guys is he runs a soft health initiative. His name's Master Sergeant Jeff Dardia, Green Beret from 3rd Group. And
super smart dude.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And he put a thing out. He has zero medical experience, which is baffling because he is brilliant. And this is what plays into what Keith is saying. As soon as you start taking out all that bullshit that you're putting into your body, you literally heal your brain, your inflammation decreases, and you become smarter. Like, research shows that you take the bullshit out of your body, the sugars, the carbs, you decrease those inflammatory foods, and you just get smarter. It's crazy. But the thing about Jeff was, he put up a post that said, be mindful of who you're following and who you're looking up to, and who are these quote unquote foundations and organizations looking to promote mental health. Because if they're promoting mental health and they're promoting alcohol in a post later, then there's a problem. And I was like, wow, I didn't think about that. And, it put me in check, because I was like, I was talking to the guys over at Bravo Actual. They're like family to me. I love them. And I sat there and I was like, how can I sit here and preach health and wellness when I live a sedentary lifestyle? And I blame it on my back pain. I have my 300 pill thing of motion right here and all this. And so I literally went out that same day and got an assault bike. And I was like, I got to get my fat ass in shape, I got to start living this lifestyle that I'm preaching, because I believe in it. Mm-hmm. But I need to be able to show that leadership perspective. Like, hey, listen, if I'm going to tell you that this will help you, that you need, your insomnia will be helped by this, but you're going to also do this. I can't be sitting here, doing nothing and feeling bad for myself and all that. So, I mean, it is a lot of personal responsibility, but I think it's also, we're so used to that tribal mindset. So, I mean, like, if Keith isn't telling me, hey, Chelsey, you need to stop drinking a 6-pack a week, I'm going to be like, 6-pack a week isn't bad. 6-pack a day, let me adjust that, then I'm going to keep doing it. So a lot of it's like bouncing ideas off of each other and holding each other accountable, just like in the military, you know. So I can cover up my bullshit pretty well. Like, oh, it's only a 6-pack a day, you know, it's light beer, whatever, you know. But if Keith's like, no, it's a 6-pack a day, you know, and let's go, let's hold me accountable.
Right.
So that's another good thing about Hunter 7 is that we're able to kind of bring together that whole thing. Like, hey, we're keeping each other in check. You know, like this is something that we care about. It's our community. It's our tribe. You know, let's find a way to kind of work together and build an overall community that cares about each other. Because, you know, like the kid veteran with a sign, he's a good friend of mine. He put up a sign that said, he's so funny. He put up a sign that said, nobody hates a veteran like a veteran. And I was like, that's so true. It's so true. But, you know, all bullshit aside, it's like, you got to help out each other. You got to hold each other accountable, you know?
I talk about it all the time. We eat our own worst than I think any group out there.
Nurses are pretty bad too. Nurses are pretty bad too.
Hospital folk in general.
Yeah. I mean, I'm telling you, ER nurses are the worst.
A bar.
It is.
If you spend any time around a hospital, you see it's like its own little environment. It's its own world and structure, and you have doctors, nurses.
It's like a bar or a restaurant, but with better hand hygiene.
Yes, absolutely.
Definitely.
But it's like a Fayetteville bar, though. You know, there's a lot of swearing. Like, I'm trying to think of a good one. Max Speed Shop. There we go. It's like a Max Speed Shop. Clean, very clean, but those people have seen some shit and they swear a lot, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a community thing, you know. You got to think about the community and, you know, you cared so much about these people downrange, you got to care about them now too, you know?
Right. So. And I think it's so easy to tell somebody else what they need to do.
Armchair quarterback.
It is so easy. I can tell every one of my friends how to fix their finances, how to get healthy, start running, all this stuff. But if I get in a funk, I don't do anything right. And it's hard for me to call myself out. I have to wait for my wife to start yelling at me and saying, hey, you're not doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Stop being a bitch and get going on your stuff.
I thought I had rights to copyright that method of thinking, but like a lot of people actually do that are like me. It's crazy. So
it's crazy.
Like, you know, I find the same thing. I find if I'm not on a program, like I'm super inconsistent in the gym.
Yeah.
Like,
wow.
Crazy how that works. But then I'm like, then I get anxious about, you know, picking a program or working with a coach. Like, so it's all the same. And then like, same with food, same with, you know, just daily routine stuff. If something gets thrown out of whack or if something, and I'm like, I'm definitely my dad. I don't get this from the military. I get this from my dad. Like, when I start working on something, like I'm on it and everything else falls by the wayside. So like, if I'm really hell bent on like doing a project and finishing it, everything else is done.
You get so engrossed in it. You get like, I know I do. If I can focus on one thing, even if my ADD takes over and I start like train spotting, I can get myself back as long as I'm focusing on my one thing. So like you said, if I'm in a program, if I'm working out, whatever the case may be, if I say, hey, I'm doing this body weight program for 30 days, for those 30 days, I'm good to go. Right. My problem is the 30 days after. I'm like, oh, the program's over.
It's good. Like the ADD with me. It's like, you know, there's so many things at once that are just being thrown at us. And it's like, you know, as a nurse, I can't be like, oh, you don't fall under our scope of assistance. It's like, I'm a nurse, you know, I care about the person first. I care about their health first, their wellness, you know? So it's like, if I can't help you, we're going to find somebody to help you, because that's, you know, like, not only is it legally my duty, if I even talk to you, you know, it's like, now I own it, you know, but ethically it's the right thing to do. And, you know, we've been blessed though to have so many people that have just been so helpful in the community, you know, and the treatments that we've been able to provide people. You know, this year we have a program in the works with the home base program to get veterans treatment there. Those guys are amazing. You know, we have a stuff in the working with Cleveland Clinic through Task Force Dagger, SOCOM Care Coalition, and, you know, for for the most part, all those programs help operators. So we try to target people that will accept veterans in general, not just the most high speed of them all.
Right.
So we've been working with Dr. Weir, Alec Weir, and he's one hell of a doctor. He's a functional medicine doctor, but he's also an emergency room doctor. So he sees both sides, and we get along great in that aspect because we're both like, oh, did you see that person with like the AAA dissection? And then we're like, oh, functional medicine, omega-3s, you know? So he practices independently through an organization. So we're actually starting a program. We've already put a few veterans into it where we're paying for their treatment so they can go get treated by Dr. Weir. And it's amazing, amazing stuff. And, you know, it's crazy because like people are like, oh, well, do you guys apply for grants? Do you guys, you know, apply for all these DOD or VA grants? And I'm like, no, a lot of our stuff is actually grassroots.
Mhm.
Like when I tell people our top donors, like Dead Reckoning Company, like you think about the foundational support that they've given us, you know, that's just one example, but you look at what they're about. And then same thing with Black Rifle Coffee,
Rifle, yeah.
like, you know, and Noveski Rifle Works. Lorena Noveski gave us almost $23,000 to help veterans.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy.
That was the coolest part of that whole thing, is that those charitable projects actually intersected. I think that speaks to the organization, right? Like we were doing Warrant After and donating all the proceeds from that pre-order and the subsequent sales to Hunter 7, and simultaneously Warm Fuzzy and Noveski were doing their raffle. So literally at the same time, within the same time frame. You know, and I think that speaks to an organization that two separate fundraisers are going on simultaneously. Like that's not coincidence. That's
and like one day
working together.
One day I got an email from a random person, and it was a guy named Matt, and he was like, hey, listen, I'm looking to donate a decent amount of money to your foundation. Can you tell me a little bit about what you do? And of course, you know, I'm passionate about this, of course, you know, so I laid it all out. He comes back and he said, originally I was going to donate 10,000, but I'm going to donate 15,000. Sent the money right away. And I was like, wow, okay. Through Strategic Dark Solutions. And it's a company out of Ohio who literally, they do a lot of law enforcement stuff and a lot of stuff with like kydex for holsters for handcuffs and training. And it's just like stuff like that. And so I said to him, I was like, you know, like, well, tell me what you want us to do with this money specifically. Like, you know, he's like, I want you to help Marine Corps veterans. I said, okay. So literally we had our friend Ben, who sadly suddenly passed away a few weeks back, unexpectedly for sure. You know, we were helping him get treatment and paying for his stuff and you know, just making sure that he was all squared away with his family, because he has, you know, 3 kids and a wife. And it's just the community as a whole, the way it comes together is unbelievable. And same thing with Bravo Actual. They push back a lot of money in sales to us. It's an incredible feeling, you know, that it's such a grassroots community. And, you know, one of the biggest, funniest things that blew my mind was we had a period in October or November, I forget what it was, but there was just a meme bracket page, like a NCAA type of bracket. And this meme page, another SF meme page.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, do you remember that? So he was pushing out, like, hey, go donate to this organization, go donate, go help them out. And literally, we racked in over 10 grand through a bunch of independent donors.
From a meme bracket?
Through a meme bracket.
Yeah.
And like, it was,
They
and
were
like,
good.
I was just like, what? And Weapons Outfitters, you know, they're another great organization. They've donated almost 5 grand. And, you know, Not Good Company, Alex over there, he literally creates Misfits shirts that a friend of ours painted. And he's raised over 10,000. And I mean, like, these people in the community are helping the community. You know, it's just such an amazing feeling, you know, because we don't have crazy donors on the outside. Everything's really internal at the ground level. So we've been blessed.
Research and legislative action takes money. I don't think people realize that.
Yeah.
Research is more time consuming.
Time.
And I mean, like when I say I work 40 hours a week doing God knows what, you know, like whether it's the MAB with the COVID antibodies and Regeneron, or whether it's in the ER, a lot of the time, like today is all research days, all research, which is, it's just so time consuming, you know?
Yeah.
But the legislative stuff, that's emotionally draining, mentally draining. But the healthcare, our capstone programs is, immediate needs, education, and research. And immediate needs definitely takes priority in terms of funding. But in terms of longevity, education and research is so time consuming, and it's our end state goal. Like we want to be able to prevent these issues from becoming terminal. We want to make sure we catch them early on through education, through research, evidence-based practice, and stop them from dying so soon. We lost Patrick Duva, 29 years old, brain cancer. He was misdiagnosed for 3 years with PTSD, TBI. He ended up losing his vision. He ended up, his migraines were so severe, but they misdiagnosed him over and over and over again. So he ended up dying at 29 years old. That shouldn't happen. We need a better system to screen these people,
And that's what PJ was talking about so much when I sat down with him was that, I don't care about being rated at 100%. I've had this conversation with my wife multiple times. I don't care about that. Listen, would the money be nice? Sure. I'm not saying that. I'd be completely lying to you if I turned around and said, no, I'm not going to take that money.
Yeah,
I'm going to take that money.
No.
But the biggest thing that I want is the screening. I want a heavy metals test. I want to be able to walk in and get all the weird environmental tests that I know that I can't just walk into my primary care physician and say, hey, want to order these up? Not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
And my insurance probably isn't going to pay for it. So how are you doing these very expensive tests? How are you finding the facilities that actually will perform this stuff? The VA is actually a good place to get these tests done. They know what they're doing. They've been doing this for years.
Right.
You just got to be allowed to do it.
Well, we send out a lot of stuff, we do a lot of like smaller, like t-shirt sales and stuff like that, and stickers and info. We send out information with every single package, but we also send out, depending on where your zip code is, I have a list of all the environmental healthcare coordinators in the country. So I'll literally write out that person's closest environmental healthcare coordinator. And I'll have them say, hey, listen, here's their name, email, location, and phone number. Call them. It's like, because I'm a vet. I know how it is. If you don't put it right in front of me, I'm not going to do it. If you're not like, hey, here it is, So, and it's a big deal, and you got to be your own biggest advocate. And if something's wrong, your body better than anybody else. You know your body. You can't have some doctor or some resident, and the VA is a teaching hospital, so they do have a lot of residents that rotate in and out. And I use the VA for some of my things, but statistically, only a quarter of Iraq, Afghanistan veterans use the VA.
Yeah, it's
so
very low. Yeah,
you're missing a lot of people in the civilian ERs and civilian acute care facilities, and it's a uphill battle. But we're finally starting to break through the whole presumptive compensation pension, and we're all disabled veterans here, right? All three of us. I love money too. Sure, of course, but I also want to make sure that I can have children. I want to make sure that my fiance can have children, that he'll live long enough to see his children. It's just, I value life. And when I talk to the widows, the survivors, when I talk to, Miranda Schuer, when I talk to Colleen Bowman, when I talk to Haley Page and Jessica Griswold, they all tell me the same thing. There is no amount of money that can bring back their loved one. None. And they'd give up everything and anything to give back their loved one. And when you hear it like that, it's like, I get it. I do. And right now, public health wise, we're treating people tertiary. We're just throwing the medications, throwing them compensation pension. But why aren't we jumping to secondary? Why aren't we starting at secondary and screening for these issues, preventing these terminal chronic illnesses, identifying early on and then giving them compensation pension,
Yeah.
It's such a messed up system. And it's the people that don't have the military experience, the people that don't have the medical experience that are trying to push these legislative laws. And, I didn't really know who Jon Stewart was at first. I don't watch TV. I don't have time. So, when he was on TV yelling about all this stuff and yelling at these politicians, and I was like, well, yeah, but have you been there? Have you done that? Have you treated these patients? Have you seen these patients? You haven't. Like please let me do my job as a nurse and let me care for the patients that I care so much about. Like, give me the tools through research and education to provide this care,
Right. And there's also a level of you can only berate politicians in an angry fashion for so long before they tell you to go screw yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the way of the world is we need those politicians to pass these laws to get our funding, to get the things that we need. You cannot do it without them.
Right.
You can badmouth them at your dinner table. You can scream and yell. You can like this one, dislike that one. You could think that your party's the best and the other party's the worst. But without both parties and without both the House and the Senate and the president, you're not getting shit done. It is not happening.
Right. And you know, I get it because I'm from Boston, so I'm very, I'm an aggressive driver. I'm very, gung ho, all that good stuff. And you're from the same area, Keith. So don't even.
No, I don't fit anywhere.
But so I'm very like, hey, let's do this. Very intense. So my grandmother said to me once, "You're more likely to get farther with sugar than vinegar." And I was like, "Okay, Gram, it's an old school saying, but she's right. Who am I to go yell at these politicians? Half the time, their aides don't even tell them what's going on or who's yelling at what, And so, I mean, like, respectfully, it's like, don't be an asshole. Hey, don't be an asshole. These are, don't be an asshole.
That's a basic principle of life. You will get a lot farther in life if you're just not an asshole.
Right.
All the time.
And I mean, like, as a veteran, like, don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Like, let's be proactive. Let's work together. Don't bash the VA. Don't bash the DOD. It is what it is. You can't change the past. You can only impact the future.
And I think that's a big one too, is like the stigmatization of the VA, right? Like,
yes.
and now it's just like, it's a running joke. And there's such a low percentage. It's like, what do you guys even know? Oh, you got your claim kicked back. So, but what about care? Are you going for care?
Right.
So it's, I always tell the story, like when I got into Voc Rehab, I wanted to give good, positive feedback about how accommodating the whole office was, right? The receptionist, who did all the intake work, my counselor, like I wanted to let their superiors know that they did a great job and it was a really good experience. There's no outlet for that. There's no process. And I don't know if that's every department in the VA or if it was just that one particular,
I've never
Voc
seen
Rehab.
Yeah.
There is no process to get positive feedback. What are you
only
doing?
negative. That's
Only
the
negative.
downfall.
They were in the supervisor, when I finally got in contact with her, because nobody could figure out who to let me, talk to. When she finally contacted me, she was bewildered. She was like, "Do you have a complaint or not?" And I was like, "No, I don't have a complaint.
I'm trying to say something good here.
I'm about to.
Yeah, I'm about to complain about you.
I'm about to complain about this process, but no, I literally just, here, copy paste what I originally said. I just want to let you know that everyone in this office is doing a stellar job, and they are doing their job and above and beyond. Working on overloaded caseloads and now they're working from home, doing a good job. But I think everybody needs to consider that too. You don't talk shit to your waitress. So consider what people are dealing with. And don't get me wrong, there are Veterans Affairs facilities that are atrocious.
Of course.
People who, but it's also a toxic culture, Chelsey's probably seen it. You in certain departments, in certain places in hospitals, it's, one bad apple turns the rest rotten, because, especially if they're in a training position, if they're in a mentoring position, because then you learn those bad habits prematurely.
Right.
And that's why they don't, they're not supposed to just select anyone for, field practicums for students and stuff. So it's, I don't know. I think that's a big one though, is, actually giving them a little bit of faith. There are a lot of things that the VA has not done well. But if you also have to remember, you're getting paid to go to school. There are places you can get care. Not every hospital is the same. Just like
Providence is great.
Yeah.
Boston's great.
You might
Northport here on Long Island is
they're a good
very
one.
good. Very.
You might get hepatitis from one Denny's in New Jersey, but then you can go to Delaware and then they might serve you a 5-star meal. You know what I mean?
And I'm not going to stop going to Denny's.
No.
So I mean,
no.
It's not going to happen.
Absolutely not. So, you know what I mean? It's not, you can't judge the entire organization. Are there things the upper level organization need to be doing better? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And it's in the works, and we need to all, educate ourselves and make sure that we're doing what we can to empower others to hold them accountable, or hold them accountable ourselves. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't go there for care.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't spite yourself because you're mad
Right.
at an overall system.
Right.
It's so true. And, it's like what we were saying, you got to hold yourself accountable. I see so many posts and so many people yelling and so many news articles that are so negative, oh, hold the VA accountable. The VA is so backlogged. It's the biggest healthcare system in the country, and it's the second biggest governmental, department. And I mean, I get it.
Man.
I get it, but I mean, you got to hold yourself accountable too. Don't sit there while you're smoking a cigarette, it's your first pack of the day, and you're smoking that whole pack, and you're like, I'm blaming the VA for my lung cancer. And it's like, okay, but let's work together and stop smoking a pack a day, stop vaping, stop, let's be proactive. Don't spite yourself,
Yeah.
It's such a tedious process. And I mean, with the politicians, they're not working against us. They're not. As much as people may believe it, they're not. They're really not. But you can't bring a problem and say, hey, this is a problem and I want it fixed. You can't bring a problem without a solution. That's military 101. If you have a problem, bring a solution. Let's brainstorm. And, myself and Keith were on a call with a girl named Sophie. She's the one of the top people over at Representative
Phillips? Was it
yeah,
Phillips?
Dean Phillips over at his office. And we sat there and talked to her for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And she was very proactive in the term that she was like, okay, I hear your problem and I hear your solution, and here's my problem and here's my solution. Let's kind of all work it together and find a way to make this work. And I was like, I like you,
Yeah, we can work. We can do something.
Yeah. Yeah. They're not against us. Just don't yell at them. Have some respect.
Yeah.
Have some respect for yourself.
I had to have a conversation with my mom right after the heart attacks and all of that. I was talking to her about the Air Force for some reason, and she was like, I don't even want to hear about the Air Force, because she has it in her head that they did this to me.
Yeah.
And I don't want to hear about it. And I'm like, I had to tell her, I was like, Ma, I wouldn't trade my time in the Air Force for anything in this world. I said, I loved every minute of it. I said, I'd do it again.
Yeah.
I said, just because something bad happened. And again, and I said it to her, I said, and we don't know for 100% that this might have just something that might have happened to me.
Exactly. And I mean, but and this is the thing, your story isn't that different from, Miranda Schuer, after Ron passed away. You're thinking Medal of Honor recipient, Secret Service, high speed guy. She said, Ron would never go back and change. And he said that he would never go back and change his career path or what happened to him if he knew the outcome. Never.
Nope.
And the same thing with Rob Bowman. He loves serving his men. That was his thing. On his deathbed, he told his wife, don't be angry. I loved serving my men in combat. And it's such a selfless service way of thinking. And it's true. I mean, if I knew that I'd break my back, would I still do it over again? Yeah, I would. Of course I would. I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun. But I met amazing people and I learned amazing things. I would never go back and trade that, ever. And that's the thing. It's like, I don't want to be looked at as a victim. I don't, because I'm not a victim. I'm not, it could be the same thing as if I was at work and I got stuck with a needle, it's, I mean, one's more serious than the other, right? Or I got assaulted by a psych patient, which happens all the time. I'm not a victim. We're not victims,
And I just don't want to be angry all the time about crap.
Right.
Yeah.
There's enough to be angry about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to just have
angry
this
over nothing, so I don't need to.
I don't need the
my
extra
life that are going to make me angry. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are some of the things legislatively that we're doing right now that Hunter 7 is involved with? Because we've been talking a lot about that legislative side of it and how important it is. What are some of the main things that we could see on the horizon that we're kind of working?
Yeah. So, being that we're a nonprofit, we do not lobby.
Okay.
We do not do all that stuff because nonprofits aren't supposed to do that. We are technically subject matter experts. So, when there's a problem, we can say, hey, listen, we can offer our services for free and give you the best evidence-based research that you can find in the world. Here we are. And that's what we do. So we have a good idea of what we believe will work. It's the first of its kind, and it's still kind of in production. We're still working on that. Well, Keith's working on it. But we are working with a lot of members in appropriations in the SVAC and HVAC, Veterans Affairs Committees, Health Committee. There's a few politicians we're trying to target, and there's a few politicians on the up and coming side. Like, I don't know if you know the name Joe Kent.
I've heard that. I've heard it.
Yeah, his wife Shannon was one of the first female operators to get killed in combat, and Catalina Lauf, she's out of Illinois, and I really like Catalina because she's running against a woman named Lauren Underwood, and Lauren Underwood is a nurse, and she was very unresponsive when I tried to reach out to her a few times, and I was like, as a nurse, I feel offended. Like, we're supposed to be like sisters. Like, what are you doing? Like, as a nurse, I'm offended. So I like Catalina. She is gung-ho about veteran healthcare, as is Joe. And so, I mean, a lot of people are up and coming and really taking a look at veteran healthcare overall. So we have a lot of things moving forward in terms of the upstream approach. Education, wellness is a big one. Secondary prevention, big one. We have a few few bills that are in the mix of things. Keith, what do you have to add to that?
No, just that one that we're working on, fine tuning that and hoping it actually goes through this time. After last year was a dumpster fire. So
fact. It was a dumpster.
The one's not off to a very good start.
No,
but
we did not excel at the beginning of 2021.
Well, we were going to push our bill with Chelsey Gabbard, who's an amazing individual.
Yes.
I wish she ran again.
That Joe Rogan interview is still one of my favorites.
She's spot on.
Awesome.
I like her a lot. She's a hot ticket. Very supportive.
Somebody's good when like when they're a Democrat and like all veterans are still like, she's good.
Yeah, she's good.
I really like her as a person. Her staff was amazing too, but she was going to push our bill through the NDAA, but the committee came back and was like, people are flipping out, yelling at members of Congress on the Hill about burn pits. So everything burn pit related got squashed.
Yeah.
And I was like, you see how these people ruin things? I was like, stop doing that.
Stop yelling.
Stop yelling.
Get some work done.
Use your inside voice. Come on. So this year, like, I think we may have a call scheduled this afternoon with Rep Stivers, who's also a 1-star general in the Ohio Guard. So
moving.
Busy day.
And
every day.
I want to say this because when I first, Chelsey, I think I talked to you on the phone back in I want to say it was like September.
Probably.
And I was telling you about some sleep problems that I had, and you told me about your partnership with Bravo Actual and their supplement company and Rack Out.
Mm-hmm.
And I got it, and I'm a fan. My wife yells at me when I don't take it because it has helped with even my snoring.
Yep.
It has helped with not getting up as much, definitely. So sleep cycle, as far as staying asleep, because that was always my big problem. So for anybody out there that is looking for some type of a non-habit forming sleep aid, and shameless plug, go check out Rack Out because it's awesome.
We worked very hard, 450 plus days on that product. And, the feedback I got was, hey, I got a traumatic brain injury, I got PTSD, I got chronic pain, and I have insomnia. And I was like, okay, yikes. That's a big, and one of the biggest issues is, hey, I can't shut down. I can't sit still. I can't, calm myself. So we created this supplement based off the research. And I literally have a binder right behind me. It's thick like this. And the guys who own Bravo Actual, they're all federal agents and they're all veterans. So, I sat there with Brandon and I said, listen, this is the issues. Let's go through, look at these natural, chemicals in the body and what we can do to impact it. And we found 15 ingredients, and 10 of them are, the half-life is under 8 hours. So it's in and out of your body within 8 hours.
Yep.
The rest of them, they have a longer half-life. But we targeted those things like magnesium and zinc. We targeted types of additives that would cause vasodilation versus vasoconstriction. So you can actually relax and calm down. And It's been a great hit. And funny thing, one of the biggest impactive factors is that it's like a natural testosterone booster, but it's like a natural what's that medication you take for low sex drive? What do you call it? The purple pill there. What is it? Viagra.
Viagra.
It's like a natural Viagra. And so that I've gotten that comment so many times from guys. They're like, "Hey, thanks for this product. It works so great." It's like it's my wife loves it. And I was like, "Oh, she takes it?" And they're like, "No." And I'm like, "No." So I mean, I take it every night. It's evidence-based. It's the only product on the market that was actually created by veterans with medical licenses.
That's awesome. And like I said, for somebody that does shift work regularly, I rotate through 3 shifts. I do a week of each one. So it's kind of the worst case scenario for sleep. And like you said, what's nice is it's in and out of the system. So I know I'm not going to wake up all kind of groggy and crappy when I got to get up for my midnight shift at 9:30 and I, didn't go to sleep until 12. So yeah, no, I've definitely been a fan. I have it upstairs in the kitchen waiting for my tea. I actually take it warm.
Yep.
I like it as a tea. So I'm definitely a fan.
Awesome.
Yeah. We could keep taking that one. Guys, I've kept you over an hour. All right. This has been a fun conversation. I was just looking down at my outline and I didn't even ask you one of the questions on there just because we were just talking. And that's, I prefer that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think that's a better way of getting information out. It's more natural that way to me.
Right.
It's and both of you are awesome. I love talking to you. I could talk to you probably forever. But I want to give you an opportunity. 2 things: closing remarks from both of you, but where can people get more information if they need help? Keith, you said you do a lot of kind of intake and stuff like that. So if people need help with whatever's going on in their life, how can they get in touch with Hunter 7? Donations, especially if people are interested in helping you guys out, because like you said, and you talked about, it's grassroots. The money's got to come from somewhere to do all this stuff. So where can they go for that? Keith, I'll go to you first. Please.
Yeah. So there's contact boxes on the website. There's a new website that's dropping, I think,
Friday.
this week.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's a lot of really, really good content on there. A lot of that research that we're talking about will be on there. There's other research, lots and lots of information. So if you're the type of person that looks for that kind of stuff instead of, wanting to just hear it from someone, it's there. The initiatives that Hunter 7 has, merchandise that, helps fundraise, different events going on, things like that. So, and super active on social media. I think probably the most, on Instagram, not as much on Facebook, or Twitter. So Instagram.
And is that Paul who runs that?
He used to. He took a personal break. So now I'm trying to figure out how to use a Hootsuite but that's what we have Megan for. Megan.
Yep.
We call her the Hammer. That's
nice.
Her.
That's my daughter's nickname.
She's only like 4 foot, 10, but she is I don't know. She's
mean.
She's not me. She is.
She hasn't been mean to me. I do what I'm supposed to do. So
she's she's a CEO. She runs it. She's hardcore. So I'm like, I'm an E5. She's like our sergeant major,
Very cool.
So she's like, hey, Chelsey, let's go, and I'm like, okay, my ADD. So, but there will be more stuff, especially on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great place for us to share academic resources, like downloadable, for people that like to read the nerdy outlines and papers. We do that. Twitter is very good for, I think, political action. I don't know how to use any of this stuff.
Well as if you're like a professional who has something that you think you might be able to contribute. Those are like LinkedIn is definitely a good place, and the website as well.
Very cool.
Whether it's research or otherwise.
Yeah. Chelsey, any last thoughts, anything like that, or something that we missed, something that you want to highlight, anything, please? No, you understand your exposures. Actually, that's Meg's new thing. Her new tagline is, understand your exposures. Because I was like, I'm going to give you a 10-page paragraph about exposure. She's like, no, simple, plain, concise, know your exposures, understand your exposures.
That's the biggest thing. So we're dealing with a lot of stuff that's scary to a lot of people. It's scary to me. Every time I pick up a book and I read about it, I'm like, oh shit, this could be anybody I love, this could be me. Understand your exposures and look at it in the sense of, hey, it's just another thing to look at, to understand, and drive through. Don't let it stop you. Drive through it. You think something's wrong with you, your body better than anybody else. You drive through it. You go get the treatment that you need. If you can't get treatment that you need, please reach out to us, because we do have resources. Even though they're limited financially, we do have resources. So we triage people based on severity, and we'll help you get the care you need, hands down.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. Guys, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. I've been looking forward to talking to both of you about this stuff. So I've had a great time talking to you, and keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Thanks for having us on, man.
Yeah, of course. And stay as busy as you are.
Oh.
It's good, though. It's good. It'll keep you out of trouble. That's what my father always tells me.
I need a vacation.
I think we all do. Go to Tahiti or something. But all right, guys, thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Yeah,
Thanks.
take care, guys.